I used to think I was at the top of the food chain. Just another arrogant guy with a backpack and this ridiculous sense of invincibility. But man, the jungle has a funny way of stripping that right off you. Cinematic battle with a jaguar or a giant anaconda. Something you can see coming, something you can fight back against. But the real terrors, the ones that actually change the way you breathe, they're smaller than your thumb and they don't care about your ego. I remember sitting there on this mossy log near the Xingu Basin. This old soul named Elias, who had skin like cured leather and eyes that seemed to see through time, just watched me with this half-smirk, like he was waiting for the punchline of a joke only he knew. Where the most dangerous thing you encounter is a cranky raccoon or a swarm of yellow jackets. So when Elias pointed out this tiny, neon yellow speck on a leaf, I actually leaned in closer like an idiot. I reached out my hand because it looked like a piece of jewelry someone had dropped. He just reached out and caught my wrist with a grip that felt like a vice. Gravelly whisper that made the hair on my neck stand up, telling me that if I touched that jewelry, my heart would literally forget how to beat before I could even finish saying, oops. That was my introduction to the gold dust phantom, or what the locals call the breath of the grave. A tiny frog that doesn't even have to try to kill you. It just exists, and its very skin is a chemical fortress built over 1,000,000 years of evolution. It carries enough poison to kill 10 grown men, not through a bite or a sting, but just by being touched. We sat there for a long time, Elias and I, just watching this little gold speck. And he started telling me about the invisible war happening all around us. A war not fought with teeth or claws, but with molecules and neurotoxins, where a single drop of fluid is worth more than a gallon of blood. He described this one spider, the shadow stalker, which doesn't sit in a web waiting for life to come to it like some lazy aristocrat. Instead, it roams the floor like a hired hitman. And I'm telling you, the way he described it made me feel like I was being watched from every dark corner. He told me a story about a researcher he'd guided years ago, a guy named Miller who was brilliant but way too cocky. Miller thought his thick boots and scientific detachment made him a god in the Green Cathedral, until he accidentally cornered a shadow stalker in his gear bag. Miller didn't even feel the bite at first, just a little pinprick, a tiny, hey, watch it, from the spider. But within 10 minutes, he was staring at his own hands like they belonged to a stranger. His nervous system was being rewired by a chemical architect that was dismantling his ability to move, piece by piece, while he stayed perfectly awake to watch the whole thing happen. It's that psychological edge that gets you. The realization that these creatures aren't just poisonous, they're strategic. It's like they've spent eons studying our biology just to find the exact off switch. Elias let me deeper into the brush, pointing out a vine ghost snake that was so perfectly blended into the canopy that I walked past it 3 times before I realized I was looking at a living, breathing predator with eyes that looked like they could calculate the exact trajectory of your soul. It doesn't rattle or hiss. It just waits with the patience of a mountain. Its venom is designed not to kill you instantly, to turn your very life force into a soup so it can drink you down without breaking a sweat. It's a cold, calculated efficiency that makes our human wars look like playground scuffles. And as we sat there in the humidity that felt like a wet wool blanket, I realized that every color, every stillness, and every sound in that forest was a coded message in a language. The real kicker, the moment that actually broke me, was when Elias showed me the iron sting ants. These are massive inch-long soldiers that guard the roots of the great trees like they protecting the Holy Grail itself. He told me about an old tribal ritual, a test of will where you had to endure the sting of these things. He described the pain not as a bite, but as a fire that lives in your bones, a sensation so intense it makes your brain forget who you are. He told me about a logger who tried to clear a patch of land near a colony, a guy who laughed at the warnings until he was swarmed. Elias said he'd never heard a man scream like that. A sound that wasn't even human anymore, just a raw, vibrating frequency of pure agony that echoed through the trees for hours. And the ant's venom doesn't even kill you, that's the twisted part. It just keeps you alive to experience every single microsecond of the torture. It's a biological keep-out sign that is more effective than any fence or gun ever made. The venom is a potent neurotoxin called ponerotoxin, and it's rated as the single most painful insect sting in the world. People who have experienced it describe it as feeling like you being shot and then walking over hot coals for hours. It's not about killing an intruder. It's about teaching them a lesson so profound, so agonizing, that neither they nor anyone who hears their screams will ever come back. By the time we started heading back to the river, The sun was dipping low, casting these long, jagged shadows that looked like grasping fingers. And I found myself stepping so carefully I was practically dancing, my heart hammering a rhythm of pure, unadulterated respect for the tiny monsters I'd been ignoring my whole life. I looked at Elias, who was just strolling along, humming some tune I didn't recognize, and I asked him if he was ever scared. He stopped, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Fear is for people who think they're in charge. I'm just a guest who knows where the exits are. We spend so much time trying to dominate nature, but nature already won the arms race a billion years ago. We just the noisy neighbors who haven't realized the landlord is a chemical genius with an infinite supply of eviction notices. But we battling against an enemy that has spent hundreds of millions of years perfecting its weapons on a molecular level. Now that I'm back in the world of asphalt and air conditioning, I can't look at a garden spider or a common bee the same way. I know the sheer, terrifying brilliance of a creature that can shut down a heart with a single drop of spit. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if we're really the masters of this planet, or if we just here because the real owners haven't decided to get rid of us yet. Every time I see a headline about some new breakthrough in medicine or tech, I just think about that little gold frog sitting on a leaf, waiting, knowing it's already perfected a technology we can barely understand. So I'm curious, when you look at the lowly creatures in your own backyard, or do you see a masterpiece of survival that could end your story before you even know it started? And if it came down to a fight between our big brains and their tiny, perfect toxins, who do you really think is walking away from that one? Drop a comment and tell me if you think we've lost our survival instinct in this modern world. Or if maybe, just maybe, the real danger isn't what's in the jungle, but how much we've forgotten about the world we actually live in. If this made you think, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that look at the world from a different angle.